All right, we're going to do our fantasy football content a little earlier this year because I want to try to get done as much as I can as humanly possible. I know it's July, but it's never too early to start talking about fantasy football. And this series that I'm going to talk about today, the Don't Eat the Cheese series, is by far the most important series that I will do for fantasy football throughout the year. So if you don't know what this series means, let me go over it. This is basically what I do, and I know 99.9% of people do not do this, but I do. Every year before I walk into my fantasy football draft, I cross names off the list before they're even taken. I just don't want them. It just doesn't matter. Under no circumstance will I pick this player. And what people need to understand is every single year, there is a list of players that absolutely kill you. And a perfect example, last year, Jonathan Taylor, he was ranked number one, right? If you wanted Jonathan Taylor, you had to pick him with the first or second pick. If you're a noob and you do snake drafts, if you're cool and you do auction leagues, you probably had to spend $70 to get Jonathan Taylor. Except he was nowhere near running back one on the season. So if you pick Jonathan Taylor, he tanked your whole season. That's the kind of stuff that we want to look for. And last year, I told you not to pick Jonathan Taylor. So, smart. Cross names off the list before I even get there. You don't want these players, right? That I'm going to go over. And it's one thing to read the article. Hey, I read it, but maybe I'm not really understanding. We're going to do video content this year to really hammer home the point of, hey, these guys, you don't want them. And I'm sure, listen, have you ever gone in the draft and crossed off names before you even get there? It helps. Trust me. And again, last year, you can go, I linked it in the article that'll be in. Jonathan Taylor, didn't want him. So we're going to go over all the running backs today that you just don't want. Actually, we're doing quarterbacks today, aren't we? Yeah, we're doing quarterbacks today. We're doing quarterbacks today. Right. Let's go over the list here and understand why I'm going into the draft, crossing these names off the list before I even get there. All right, we're going to start with Desmond Ridder. And this is for 2 quarterback leagues. If you're playing in a 1 quarterback league, I don't take your fantasy analysis seriously anyway. There are 32 starting quarterbacks. The idea that you're only going to use 10 of them in a week is crazy, especially when it's the most important position. If you're in a 2 quarterback league, I'll take you seriously. So for those that, hey, can I use my QB2 spot on Desmond Ridder? This is why I don't like Desmond Ridder. For starters, I just don't think he's any good. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of Louisville. He was a 3rd-round pick. He's going to be the Falcons starting quarterback this year. And the number one thing that really bothers me about Ridder last year is the fact that he didn't rush for any yards. So if we go to his rushing totals, he only rushed for 64 yards in 4 games. It's just not good enough. Like, I know he sucks as a passer. If he's not going to pick up any rushing yards, then he's completely and utterly worthless. So let's pull this up and remember NFL team passing attempts, right? If we go to this list from last year, again, this will change heading into this year. We know that. But if we just go to overall attempts, the Falcons are down here at 31. If I'm having a quarterback that's not going to throw the ball, and again, I think they want to justify that Bijan Robinson pick, right? If you take a running back in the top 10, which is nuts. It's not necessarily nuts if you're picking a Hall of Famer. I just don't think Bijan Robinson's going to be a Hall of Famer. So then the pick's really nuts. If you're going to do that, you want to justify that pick. They were already second to last in passing attempts. You draft a 1st-round running back. I don't see how that number's going up. And I just don't think he's good. I've written an article in the past. I think he's fucking terrible. I really do. And I'll link this in the description or in the article. You pause the screen if you need to. I don't think he's any good. I just don't. He's not an Alabama athlete. It would be one thing if he was kind of like a Hurts-ish runner to where he was going to pick up all these fantasy stats through the ground. But if he's not going to throw the ball, and he's not going to rush for it, like Marcus Mariota could actually kind of run. And Marcus Mariota's horrible. So I think you're getting a better real-life quarterback than Marcus Mariota, but a worse fantasy quarterback. I'd say if Marcus Mariota is here, Desmond Ridder real life is probably here. And then fantasy, he's probably here. What's the value? So let's keep it moving there. Second guy on the list I have, and I have all this typed out, but we'll keep it moving here. Anthony Richardson. I just want to pull this up. Matthew Berry has him ranked in the teens, right? I'm just out on that. I'm just out on that overall idea. For starters, yes, the Colts do kind of throw the ball, but that's a totally new coaching staff. We don't know how that's going to work. Shane Steichen comes over from Philadelphia. The Eagles were down here, so maybe the passing attempts will come down. This is kind of my point on Richardson. I don't think he's ready to play. Like, I just don't think he's ready to play. And even people that like him would probably admit that he's not ready to play. If you're going to tell me that Richardson's going to be a nice QB2 or even low end QB1 for you, are you telling me that guy who threw for under 55% in his college career is going to do that in year one? This is the NFL, and he's playing in the AFC, the harder conference. You're telling me a guy that has 13 career college starts under 55% is going to be a fantasy darling in year one? I don't buy it. I don't buy it, especially with this Colts offense. Who are you throwing the ball to? Who are you throwing the ball to? I mean, they don't have good weapons. I mean, again, we went over this last year for all the people that ranked Michael Pittman as a top 10 weapon. Didn't fucking happen. He's okay, Michael Pittman. He's okay. The rest of your targets, you better hope that Josh Downs is a rookie. And again, I compared him to Santana Moss, but he's not going to be that guy in year one. Alec Pierce, slot guy. Isaiah McKenzie couldn't make Buffalo's roster. You're telling me that guy is going to be a top-end QB in fantasy? I don't buy it. The only chance that he has is if he comes through on the rushing touchdowns. And again, I kind of made this comparison. This was Josh Allen's rookie year, I believe. Josh Allen was QB 21, and then I think based off of points, he was QB 18. So he's down here, right? That's probably your best case scenario. Josh Allen has turned into a monster hit. Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think he is the best quarterback in the league, and say whatever you want there. I think him and Mahomes are right there, neck and neck. I think Allen deserves more credit based on the fact that if he had Andy Reid, you'd probably say the opposite answer, but that's a different story for another day. Allen has turned into a mega hit, and even his rookie year, because we didn't think he was ready to play either. Even his, and I was always a Josh Allen believer. I'm not really a Richardson believer. Even his rookie year, when I was an Allen believer and we knew he wasn't ready to play, he still really was a back-end QB2, wasn't really helping you. And the only reason that he even did help you as a rookie is because he did punch all those rushing touchdowns home. And again, this is Allen's rookie season. And again, this is if Richardson's good. This is if Richardson makes it, right? This is the pathway. They think he's the next Josh Allen. I don't believe that. But let's just say it happens and we'll go with it for hypothetical reasons, right? Allen is a rookie, 10 touchdowns, 12 picks. That's probably what Richardson's going to give you. The only reason that Allen helped you as a rookie in terms of fantasy is because he punched those 8 rushing touchdowns home. Is that going to happen with the Colts? Maybe. Then again, if you really think about it, your running back in Indianapolis is Jonathan Taylor. Have the Bills had a reliable running back since Allen's been in the league? Not really, right? I think Allen kind of had to do this. And think about his Buffalo career. Who's been the running back that's going to punch it into the red zone? I think the best running back they've had is Devin Singletary, who's not even on the roster anymore. In Indianapolis, you have Jonathan Taylor. It's a different ball game. It's a lot easier to hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor. Is Richardson going to really come through with those 8 rushing touchdowns? If he doesn't, I don't see how he's going to help you. And for Matthew Berry to rank him 13th, and we've had this conversation about the flaws in Matthew Berry. I don't think Matthew Berry is the worst fantasy expert ever. There are times he comes up with good calls. I fully acknowledge that. He had Eckler as a good fantasy play. He had Jalen Hurts as a good fantasy play, but he has flaws. He doesn't watch college football. So again, if you're going to hammer home, hey, Matthew Berry said Anthony Richardson's going to be the 13th best quarterback in fantasy this year. Keep in mind that he doesn't watch Florida games. So next on my list is Geno Smith. So Geno Smith threw 30 touchdowns last year. His previous career high is 13. Maybe people think that Geno Smith, this is who he is now. And maybe those people are right? We believe in the Chinese farmer, maybe. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy that Geno Smith is throwing for 30 touchdowns again. I just don't buy that he's throwing for nearly 70% again. And you could say, hey, well, Trey, Seattle's team's actually better, right? Those rookie tackles that they took last year, they should take a step up. They added another running back. Kenneth Walker's coming into his own. They added Smith and Jigba. DK Metcalf is still young. Seattle should be better, right? Well, that's actually the problem. If Seattle's better, then his passing attempts, 572, which is crazy, I think comes way down. I think that passing attempt number comes way down. There's really 2 scenarios here, in my opinion. Seattle is better, or it was a total fluke. Let's go over option A, right? We want to create pathways. Hey, what are the realm of possibilities in fantasy? That's what we always try to look for. We don't know what's going to happen during the season. Injuries happen. Sports are the most unpredictable thing possible. People are wrong constantly. But if we can narrow down our pathways, we can be a lot more accurate. There are really two scenarios here, right? Two realistic scenarios. One, Geno Smith wasn't a fluke and Seattle is better. The problem is if Seattle is better, that passing attempts number is coming way down. And Pete Carroll's always wanted to run the football. The talk in Seattle forever was let Russ cook, let Russ cook, let Russ cook. Well, they don't really want to let Russ cook. They want to run the football. But the biggest reason why they took Zach Charbonnet is they want to run the ball more. And in the same draft, they took Kenny McIntosh, who's a little, receiving running back. DJ Dallas can play some special teams, but he can also run the ball. So now the running back depth is loaded. They got more running backs than they've ever had in a long time. And I think Kenneth Walker's good. I think they want to get him the ball. So you're telling me he's going to throw for 572 times. If they're better, let's say they're a 12-win team. Geno Smith wasn't a fluke. This Seahawks team is for real. That number's coming down. And if we go to the rushing totals, 1 rushing touchdown, 366 yards, he doesn't really help you through the ground. Now, I'm not saying he's a negative. He'll help you more than most. But it's not like Geno Smith is going out there and he's going to pick up. Like his rookie year, he had 6 rushing touchdowns. That guy's done. He's going to be 33 this upcoming year. That guy's done. You're not getting 6. I mean, maybe. You never know. But I don't see it. I don't see the rushing coming. Let's go with option B. Let's say, and this is what I think is going to happen. Let's say Geno Smith just caught lightning in a bottle. And the biggest example of this would be Ryan Fitzpatrick. This is who I think he is. Ryan Fitzpatrick has posted 30 touchdowns before. It was followed up by a dud. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick would come in hot, right? I don't know. With any of these guys, like a Case Keenum is another perfect example. And Nick Foles is another perfect example. The second that you pay them, and then the second that you really start believing in them, is the moment to move on with all of these guys that fit this mold. And I think Geno Smith is another one and another perfect example. It's really easy to be doubted and hungry and want to fucking win. But the second that people start believing in you, that eye of the tiger kind of goes away. I don't know. I don't think Seattle will be nearly as good. I think this Geno Smith thing is kind of a fluke. And let's just go to some fantasy rankings, right? Where are you going to find Geno Smith on most of your list? And again, Geno Smith was awesome last year, right? But if you're going to convince me that he's like a top 14, top 12, some people probably have him higher. I'm not taking him over Aaron Rodgers. And I don't even believe in the Jets, but I'm just not doing it. And look at Richardson's a little lower on Fantasy Pros list compared to Matthew Berry. But I don't know. I think I'd rather have Kenny Pickett than Geno Smith. And maybe that's crazy, but I just don't see any upside in terms of hey, is he really going to outproduce what he did last year? I don't buy it. Let's go to the next one. Justin Fields. We got 2 more to go to. This is the second to last one. I added a little video in here. Talked about it a little bit before, but you cannot find a single fucking list. And I've been trying, whether it be ESPN, Matthew Berry, Fantasy Pros, every single fucking fantasy expert out there has Justin Fields as QB6. And I don't get it. I'm not buying into it. I think the Bears are going to be fucking terrible. To me, it just kind of feels like people are picking the wrong guy. I don't know. To me, that draft class with Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, we've all kind of forgotten that Trevor Lawrence is the QB1 of QB1 of QB1 on that list. He's one of the highest recruited players in the history of college football. He won a national championship in year 1 at Clemson. He basically never lost at Clemson. He lost 1 game at fucking Clemson. He goes to Jacksonville. They stink because Urban Meyer runs the team into the ground. Last year, hey, they make the playoffs. I think he's going to fucking explode. I think Trevor Lawrence is a top 3 quarterback. Justin Fields. I mean, let's go over it. It's going to take me a while, but let's just go over. The Bears are fucking terrible. The Bears are fucking terrible. Who's getting sacks on this team? Who's going to really protect the lead? Who's picking up numbers on this defense? Eddie Jackson's good. I like their safeties, if that helps. I like their safeties. Nobody's picking up sacks on this team. Nobody's picking up sacks on this team. And if you're bleeding time of possession, it's going to be really hard, man. It's going to be really hard. And the other thing is, I mean, his weapons are not good either. DJ Moore's fine. But does he turn up the temperature in terms of the overall room? Not really. Chase Claypool's a bum. Darnell Mooney's a small guy. The offensive line, I guess it's gotten better than what it was a year ago, but I just don't buy the Fields thing. And let's pull up a bunch of reasons why. He threw for 17 touchdowns, 60%, 3-12. They were awful after they traded Roquan Smith, by the way. Awful. Didn't win a single game after they traded Roquan Smith. I just don't buy it. He got sacked 55 fucking times. Bold number for a reason. This is the point that's going to matter. Do you think that Justin Fields is going to rush for over 1,000 yards? Last year, he did. But it usually doesn't happen in back-to-back years. And I'll give you a perfect example. Like if we go to Lamar Jackson, who I think Fields is a better real-life player than Lamar, but not a better fantasy player than Lamar, if that makes any sense. If we go to his rushing, he did have back-to-back years, but it eventually does kind of fall off a cliff. It does eventually fall off a cliff. If you're going to argue that this is the second year Fields is going to do it again, that's your only justification for him getting into this range, because otherwise it really doesn't make sense. Again, Fields is going to have to be a better passer for him to finish this high in fantasy. He's just going to have to be. The rushing will push him into the top 10 range, and I'm not denying that. But for him to really be like a top end motherfucker in terms of fantasy, I mean, that's bad. Like, you really want to sell your soul for a quarterback that never throws. I mean, this is low. This is bad. Like, this is awful. 377 attempts. We just talked about how many Geno Smith had last year, right? Are you really telling me 377 passing attempts? And again, it would be one thing if the Bears had a new coaching staff. They're implementing a new system. The same guys are coming back. And this is an offense. Again, all these Ohio State quarterbacks, rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins, JT Barrett, like all those Ohio State, Cardale Jones, all these Ohio State quarterbacks have struggled transitioning to the NFL. I don't think he's ready to go as a passer yet. I believe in Justin Fields. I like Justin Fields as a real life player, but I think he's got another season to go in terms of his overall passing numbers. And let's just keep this in mind. It's the same coaching staff, and it's a defensive coaching staff. It's not like he's got Shanahan with him. It's not like he's got McVay with him. He's got Matt Eberflus, a defensive head coach who probably, and again, if you go back to this Bears depth chart, they really overhauled their running back room too and added some guys on the offensive line. Khalil Herbert, they want him to take a step forward. They signed Deontay Foreman to replace David Montgomery, and then they drafted Roschon Johnson, who I think Roschon Johnson is terrible on a separate side note, but they also signed Travis Homer. They're one of the only teams that has a fullback on the roster. So I think they're going to run the ball a lot like they did last year. I don't think Fields is going to put up these mega passing numbers. I think 17 touchdowns is probably what he'll be last year. What it's going to depend on is he going to rush for 1,000 yards? I don't know. If you're banking on your quarterback to rush for 1,000 yards and give you very little passing production, you're playing with fire. You're just always going to play with fire. At least Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts throws the ball. Jalen Hurts has A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who are two weapons that are better than whatever Chicago has. I just don't buy it. I think QB 5 to 7 is way too high. Way too high. And again, I'm not saying I wouldn't take Fields, but it seems like everybody wants Fields. It seems like everybody thinks that the Bears are going to go in this Eagles type of run where they're going to put up all these points and they're going to be a 13-win team. And I don't see it. Defensive head coach, don't love that. Your offense is still kind of garbage. Your defense is fucking terrible. Like that defense, you got to get stops. If you want to have a lead and you're going to get Fields running and you're going to get Fields, because again, with Lamar, he was always better playing from in front. He was always better playing with a lead. These guys that can't really pass, you don't want them behind, even though it's nice to get in shootouts. These guys aren't capable of getting into shootouts. It would be nice if Fields had a lead. He could pick up some easy, points on the ground, get some rushing totals. Hey, the Bears are putting up 35 points a game. Those are the things that are going to happen if he's going to finish QB5. Right now, based on realistic outcomes, your only outcome is if he rushes for over 1,000 yards, which he did last year. But these rushing quarterbacks, man, these pure running quarterbacks, I don't buy it for Fields. And again, who's picking up sacks for this team? Who's getting this defense off the field to where Fields is back on the field and Fields is the one picking up points? This defense is going to be on the field for a long time because nobody on here is picking up sacks. Next, Lamar Jackson. Anyone that reads this site for a long time knows I hate that piece of shit. I am no longer a Ravens fan. I have turned my Ravens fan card in. I will never root for that team again because I fucking hate that piece of shit. But this is fantasy football. We take those emotions aside. Even putting those emotions aside, people need to understand what's really going to happen here. Okay? This guy right here, you're never seeing him again. He's gone. I'll give you a perfect example. This is exactly what's going to happen to Lamar Jackson. One day, you're going to wake up and you're going to say, what the fuck happened to Cam Newton? Well, he stinks. He's always stunk. Again, we go over here. This guy, this Cam Newton, this 2015 Cam Newton, he threw for 35 touchdowns. He never did it again. He threw for 36 touchdowns. He'll never do it again. He'll never do it again. Like, I don't know who needs to hear that, but he's never going to do that again. You can screenshot me. You can do whatever you want. I've seen this 1,000 times with these quarterbacks that are flawed. He's flawed. He'll never do this again. They got the scouting report on him. He'll never do this again. And that's what he needs to do in order to live up to the QB4 that he's being ranked. I'm never going to take him over Joe Burrow, who's going to put up, like, Joe Burrow's going to throw for 30 touchdowns again. We know that. He did it in 2022. He did it in 2021. He'll do it again this year. He's always going to throw for 30 touchdowns. Last year, you got 17 out of Lamar. The year before, you got 16 out of Lamar. He's been hurt in back-to-back years. He'll probably get hurt during a 4-week stretch again. And now the rushing totals are coming down. The rushing totals are diminishing. The last two, again, take the rookie year aside, over 1,000 yards, over 1,000 yards. Now we're in 700-yard territory. Now you add Odell Beckham. You add Zay Flowers. They're going to want to throw the ball more, protect Lamar, and prove that he's this pocket passer, even though it's not going to work, right? Now, you might get 500 yards. If he gets 500 yards rushing, you're fucked. He needs to be this guy in order to be valuable for fantasy. In order to justify the cost of taking him as a QB4, he needs to do this. The last 2 years, he's done this, and it's been overvalued. He's cost you the last 2 years. Heading into this year, I think people need to understand that this guy's gone. Again, like Cam Newton, 2015 Cam Newton, he saved you. It was a career year, 7.1% touchdown rate. He threw 35 of them. He never did it again. He never came anywhere close. He won the MVP. It was hey, everything's lining up for Cam Newton. Another guy that struggles with accuracy issues. He'll never do it again. And here's the other crazy part that I really want to convey. We're sure Odell Beckham is going to help you. Can we just pull that up next? We're positive that this guy's going to help you. This isn't Giants Odell Beckham. That guy's gone. You're telling me. And then in 2020, he got 319 yards in 13 games. This guy's going to be the difference that propels Lamar into this ultimate passing fantasy quarterback. I don't buy it. I think he's a negative, Odell Beckham. I'm not saying he's a negative for everybody, but in Baltimore and a run-first offense where he's going to demand his fucking targets, I'm not sure he helps you. And like Baker Mayfield, he destroyed Baker Mayfield's confidence. And again, I wasn't a Baker Mayfield fan either, but I don't know, man. Like, to just assume that Odell Beckham is going to take Lamar to this QB5 range, I don't buy it. So that's the list. Go in the comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Those are the guys I don't want. Just go into your draft, mark them off the list. Like, they're already taken. Like, somebody has already gifted you that idea that they're gone. Because like last year, we can pull up the list from last year. Last year, can I do that real quick? I'll end with that. Last year, Trey was on the money. Dak Prescott. He went from 37 touchdowns to 23. It's exactly the kind of thing that I'm trying to tell you here. Dak Prescott was a bad pick in fantasy. Tom Brady was a bad pick in fantasy. Losing Bruce Arians was not a good thing. The Bucs took a major step back. So, again, and then Matt Ryan, who was complete and utter dog shit. This is that same Colts team, basically, with a new head coach, the same overall roster, the same dead brain Chris Ballard that doesn't know how to draft. That same Colts team that people are trying to hype up, that Anthony Richardson's going to come in and change things. Year one, again, last year we were 3 for 3. This year I hope to be, 6 for 6 or however many I listed. So you can listen to me or don't listen to me. That part is up to you. Last year we were on the money for all these picks. This year I think we will be again. And again, last year I didn't even list Lamar Jackson. So I don't always go emotional. But to just think that, like last year, Lamar Jackson was ranked lower than he is this year. But Odell Beckham changes your mind? Zay Flowers changes your mind? Don't get it. Don't get it. So that's your don't eat the cheese list for quarterbacks. We're going to do all these videos. It's July, so we have some time. If you like this video, comment, subscribe, do all that. Peace out, Girl Scout.